Welcome to another new video. Today we will look at the discovery of a lost continent. In fact, there are many lost continents. While some of these are real, as we will see in this video, some are imaginary continents that only exist in legends. These lost continents are as follows. Atlantis is the most famous, and its location is the most controversial. Lemuria is a huge continent that is thought to have once connected Madagascar, India, and Sri Lanka. Mu is a continent located in the Pacific Ocean and is said to have hosted a highly developed civilization. Beringia is the continent that was thought to have been a land bridge connecting Asia and North America during the last ice age, and was home to a variety of animals, including humans, and played a role in the migration of humans to the Americas. Doggerland was once a landmass connecting Great Britain and continental Europe. It was submerged by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age, and Doggerland has now become a popular destination for shipwreck hunters, as many ships have sunk in its shallow waters over the centuries. The last one, and the subject of this video, is the lost continent Zealandia. It is thought to be a submerged continent that currently lies mostly beneath the Pacific Ocean. It was once a separate landmass from Australia and Antarctica, but it began to break up about 80 million years ago. Let's start from here. How do scientists know this is a lost continent? Theories about this region, which originally included West Antarctica and Eastern Australia, have been put forward since Roman times and was even partially discovered in the 1600s. But it took nearly 4 centuries for geologists to finally agree on the new continent. The evidence that there was a lost continent there was this. Scientists relied on the underwater Argo-abyssal plain as evidence of the lost continent's past existence. The seabed structure indicates that the detached continent drifted northwest, potentially towards modern-day Southeast Asia. But the mystery deepens as Zealandia's large continent-sized footprint is conspicuously absent beneath the islands of Southeast Asia. Instead, these islands lie on smaller continental fragments surrounded by significantly older ocean basins. This has led geologists to examine Zealandia's fate more deeply. They found that the lost continent was not completely destroyed, but just broken into pieces. Another example of how continents disappear on the Earth map is this. The weight of the Earth's crust varies. It consists of heavier oceanic parts and lighter continental parts. Interestingly, these lighter parts may be hidden below sea level, similar to another lost continent, Greater Adria. Greater Adria's journey ended when it plunged into the Earth's mantle, leaving behind its upper layer, which later became the mountains of southern Europe. Zealandia, by contrast, left no evidence in the form of folded rocks. Another interesting information about this lost continent is that a Dutch sailor and businessman named Abel Tasman went on an expedition to find this 8th continent in 1642. Setting out from Jakarta, Indonesia, Tasman eventually landed on New Zealand's South Island and began exploring. But before he could set foot on land, he encountered the local Maori, who were not fond of the European sailor. In fact, they were so disturbed by his presence that they crashed their canoe into a boat carrying messages between Dutch ships, killing 4 people. Unable to find the new land, Tasman returned home and never returned. Ironically, this was the first time information about the mysterious 8th continent was recorded. To tell the truth, it was not possible to discover Tasman with the technology of that time, because the lost continent had drifted far away. Nearly 400 years later, GNS geologists announced the discovery of a new continent called Zealandia, or Te Reo a Maui in the Maori dialect. The continent, which is approximately 1.89 million square miles and hidden in plain sight, turns out to be mostly underwater. This vast continent was also part of the ancient supercontinent Gondwana, which included most of West Antarctica and Eastern Australia 500 million years ago. But around 105 million years ago, Zealandia began to withdraw from the supercontinent for reasons that geologists still do not fully understand. This is a process we don't fully understand yet, as Zealandia began to retreat, explained Andy Tulloch, a geologist at Zealand Crown Research Institute, GNS Science, who made the 2017 discovery. When Zealandia did this, it began to sink beneath the waves, with more than 94% of it remaining submerged for 1,000 years. Explaining that the continent is located under 6,560 feet of water, Tulloch added, "This is an example of how long it can take to uncover something so obvious." His colleague Nick Mortimer, who led the study, said it was kind of cool and explained why it took so long to discover it. The next question researcher Van Hinsbergen once answered is what the geology of Southeast Asia can say about the fate of Zealandia. "We were really dealing with islands of information, which is why it took us so long to investigate. We spent 7 years putting the puzzle together," says Advocat. The situation in Southeast Asia is very different from places like Africa and South America, where the continent is neatly divided into two. Zealandia was divided into many different parts. This blocked our view of the continent's journey, said. However, this changed when he noticed that the pieces had arrived at their current locations at almost the same time, shedding light on their previous connections. These shards came together like a mosaic, where Argoland hides beneath the lush forests that cover significant parts of Indonesia and Myanmar. This type of fragmentation is a characteristic feature of the microcontinent. Argoland, however, has never been a singular, well-defined and interconnected continent. Instead, it resembled an archipelago of microcontinental fragments separated by ancient ocean basins. In this respect, it shares similarities with Greater Adria, which is by now mostly submerged in the Earth's mantle, or the mostly submerged continent of Zealandia, which lies east of Australia. The disintegration of Argoland began about 300 million years ago, Van Hinsbergen adds. That is, when Zealandia started diving into the ocean. This puzzle, solved by Advocat and Van Hinsbergen, fits seamlessly between the neighboring geological systems of the Himalayas and the Philippines. Detective work also explains why Argoland is so fragmented. Disintegration accelerated about 215 million years ago, as the continent broke into thin pieces. Other interesting information about the eighth continent, Zealandia, is as follows. It covers an area of 1.9 million square miles. That is, it has a surface area of approximately half the size of Australia. This continent typically has a thicker crust and is much more geologically diverse, with granites, shales, limestones, and quartzites than the seafloor. So how did researchers find the lost continent? Researchers collected and dated basalt and sandstone rocks from the seafloor of Zealandia's Fairway Ridge region, located in the Coral Sea northwestern New Caledonia. Their ages ranged from 36 to 128 million years. By collecting rock samples and plotting where they were located in Zealand, the team was able to get an idea of how and when geological forces, such as volcano formation and sinking crusts, occurred. The paper's bathymetric map shows, from left to right, the underlying geology of Zealandia became progressively younger from the Paleozoic to the Permian-Mesozoic periods. The data helps geologists understand what happened when Zealandia broke away from a larger landmass. Zealandia is probably Antarctica's cousin. Mortimer calls Zealandia an extra piece of the puzzle of the supercontinent Gondwana. Geologists have long known that Gondwana was a landmass that now includes Antarctica, Australia, South America, Africa, and India. It began to break down during the late Jurassic period, about 160 million years ago. Zealandia's basic geology has provided clues as to where it fits into the supercontinent alongside Australia and Antarctica. This involved finding where granite once met granite and recording reversals in the Earth's magnetic field. We can get very satisfactory geological matches between these continents before the supercontinent breaks up, Mortimer said. Beneath the ice, much of West Antarctica remained underwater, Mortimer said. About 100 million years ago, the two nested together in Gondwana. Both of these pieces were stretched, pulled and stretched like pizza dough, Mortimer said. They got wider, but thinner. As the crust cooled and thinned, Zealandia began to sink underwater and continued to sink until about 25 million years ago. Meanwhile, although New Zealand was never completely submerged, the uplift of the crust created mountains and islands. Adding Zealand to the data mix will give us some insight into why supercontinents are breaking apart, Mortimer said. It also provides biologists with important information about the plants and animals that lived on Zealandia, such as the ancient penguins. Mortimer said that the answer to this question and many others is still unresolved. But now that geologists have a basic understanding of the contours of Zealandia and its geology, they can much more consciously tailor their research projects and questions to answer the when, how, and why questions. In addition, the main point of this study was that we obtained important information about plate movements and how continents evolved. Yes, we have come to the end of a video in which we provide interesting information and share a current discovery. You can write in the comments whether you would like to see more fact videos or videos that provide such discovery and interesting information. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Bye.